I promised you a visitor today, and he has just made it here. Patron,
Chef,
tout va bien?
ça va très bien. Et vous?
Je vais très très bien. Veuillez saluer la classe débutante.
D'accord. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Moi, je m'appelle Félix Mango. Je suis interprète de conférence. Et voilà, je suis très heureux de vous rejoindre ce soir.
Merci beaucoup. Who has any idea what Greek this man has just spoken?
He has said what his name is.
Oui.
Probably needs to speak a bit slower so that you can get the rest.
He said that he is Monsieur Felix. He is a conference interpreter. Not just a conference interpreter, he is our head interpreter at Bonjour Institute. So all those times that you see conferences going on with people wearing headsets and all, Monsieur Felix is usually one of the people who are out of view, yeah, hiding inside a booth somewhere at the back of the conference room, making sure that people understand each other, yeah. He is one of the best interpreters, not just in Kenya, but in the region and also on the continent. So thank you so much, Monsieur Felix, for making time to be with us here.
De rien. C'est un super grand plaisir, surtout de saluer vos étudiants et puis de les parler un petit peu, n'est-ce pas? Ça fait du bien. En fait.
Ah, très très bien. Donc ici nous avons trois étudiantes, Wamboy, Nancy et Beryl. Oui.
Okay.
Et nous avons un autre prof de français, le grand chef, Monsieur Pierre. So I invited Monsieur Felix just to tell us a few things. Our students already have their careers, yeah, but we believe that language gives people options. And in case one of them ever decides to venture deeper into French, I just wanted to show them like what options exist out there. Right. So I just wanted you to mention a few things about conference interpretation, how you ended up becoming an interpreter, how you ended up becoming a good interpreter, yeah, and yes, just for a few minutes, interesting things about your profession, if it allows you to travel a bit, and then we'll give them a few minutes for questions and answers. C'est bon?
Okay. C'est bon, c'est bon. Okay, so, well, interpretation is a very interesting field, you know. You get to travel a lot. You get to meet new people all the time, you know. And it's funny because every meeting that you do is always different, you know. It's basically like people are paying you to learn new stuff, you know what I'm saying? For me, it was actually an accident. I didn't like train to be an interpreter. It just happened, you know. I was a teacher actually before. I did teach French for 2 years. Let's say teaching was not my vocation, so it was nice, but it wasn't what really I wanted to do to pursue in life. So I stopped, and then I just ventured into interpretation. So it was not the easiest of things to do initially, because you have to like interpret whatever somebody's saying, immediately render it in a different language, and then it's back and forth, English into French, French into English. I mean, it's a crazy, crazy job. You wouldn't even believe it's a crazy, crazy job. The amount of reading you have to do. It's like they say, like once an interpreter, always an interpreter. You cannot just say I'm an interpreter and you know you're not doing anything. Every day you're interpreting. In your mind, you have to watch a lot of things, you have to read a lot of things, you have to get to know what's happening around the world, so that when somebody, you know, like you're in a meeting and they start a story about something that happened somewhere in that or the other corner of the world, you latch onto it and you know what to do. So basically, I just found myself interpreting. Actually, there's a funny story to it because I almost quit initially. I started it and then I realized this thing is not for the faint-hearted. The amount of work, the idiomatic expressions in both languages, you just have to be like, it's not for the lazy, you know, if you're a lazy person, you cannot be an interpreter. Yes, it pays extremely well. And a lot of people look at the money and say, I also want to be an interpreter because I'm going to get paid all this money. And yes, the money is good, but you have to put in the hours. Like I know 2 ways about, you have to put in the hours, you have to know your stuff, yeah? And a big challenge that we encounter as interpreters is the accents, the different accents, because you might think you know French, then you enter the booth, you realize you don't know anything, you know, because of the accents that people use. For instance, the accent, because when I went to school, they teach you the Parisian accent. Now, that is what is etched on your brain, you know, so it's very easy. You hear it, you know what they're saying, you latch onto stuff. But enter the West African accent, which is also like, it has its subgenres and what have you. It's, every country speaks, it's the same language, yes, but the accents are tricky. For instance, Senegalese accent is one of the hardest. For me, I had to relearn again. Like I had to now go and listen to African French, because as you know, there are different variations in languages across the world. They are quite different, but if you really set your mind towards doing something, I believe you can do it. And yes, to a large extent, I can comfortably say that I can handle almost all the accents, almost all, not all. So that's my journey pretty much. I've been doing this for about, I think this should be my 9th or 10th year. But what I love the most about it is no two meetings are the same. Today you handle a meeting about agriculture, tomorrow you do the military stuff, the next day you do medicine, the other time you're doing UN, climate change, what have you. So, and you learn so much, especially, it especially helps if you are curious. Because if you just like, you do a meeting, you're done and that's it, then, I mean, you won't make a very good interpreter now, will you? So you have to always like be very curious when, you know, before a meeting, go through the documents and what have you, and familiarize yourself with the terms, which is not even enough. You could do all that, but if you're not a good interpreter, you still might not be able to hack a meeting. If you have it in you, well, you can make a very good interpreter, and not just be a good interpreter, but also make a whole lot of money, you know, out of it, because it pays extremely well. It frees up your space to be able to handle, maybe follow other passions and do other things, of course, while practicing, because your practice always has to be there. You know, you have to keep practicing. You have to, you know, always know your stuff and learn and relearn and read. You have to be like an avid reader. Yeah. So pretty much that's my story. And I'm really glad to be here this evening to talk to you guys.